Joan Lewis sustained a spinal cord injury in 1975 and has found living and aging with a spinal cord injury means constantly adapting. She has participated in competitive and recreational sport, from archery to kayaking to sailing to mindfulness-based stress reduction. She joins us now to talk about motivation and trying new things. Welcome, Joan.
Hi.
Let's talk about adapting. You have decades of lived experience with spinal cord injury. Can you share a few examples of how you've adapted over the years?
Sure. Oh gosh. I would say, one thing you can count on in life is that things are going to change. Um, they are constantly changing. Um, as someone who grew up in a family who was very physically active, I came to realize after I was injured, when all my family and friends were out skiing, that I was going to need to develop other interests in order to remain engaged, and remain physically active, but in a different way. There wasn't adaptive skiing at that time, so that really wasn't an option for me. And I also just didn't tolerate the cold very well anymore. So I started looking for other things that I might be able to do. And I was living in a relatively rural community at the time, and I was looking for someone to teach me how to play the flute, but couldn't find a soul to teach me how to play the flute. So I learned there was a fellow living down the road from me who had been an Olympic archer. So I took up archery. And he had an archery range there. The guys lifted me down the stairs in my chair into the range, and I learned how to play, how to do archery. And I took that up for many years and became very competitive in archery at an international level, and really enjoyed that for a number of years. And then when I started working in a demanding full-time job, it became too much to do that archery at that level. So it was kind of like having a second job at that point. So I was looking around for other sports I might do, and I wanted to do something simply recreational. So I took up kayaking. I knew some people who were kayakers and that were able to help me get in and out of the boat and transport the boat on the roof of the car, that kind of thing. And then I started developing some neck challenges and shoulder challenges. So I gave up the archery. I'd also moved to Toronto at that point, and I learned about the sailing club here through an article in the Canadian Paraplegic Association magazine at that time, and learned that they existed. So in 2000, I took up sailing and got back into competitive sailing and had a lot of fun with that. I traveled to Florida for
I've
a
been
competition.
on that vein. I've been sailing as well, and I found it to be one of the recreational activities that I enjoy. And the most enjoyable recreational activity that I currently do is hand biking with my partner, and I find that incredibly rewarding. Um, and
Right.
and on that topic, what I found it very I found it very important, the connections that I've made in biking. And so I wanted to ask you that question. In your recreational activities, what's the connection for you between social interaction, physical activity, and your mental well-being?
Well, they're all intricately connected, I think. It's always fun to meet new people, hear their stories and their experiences. Um, there's always social connections that take place around sports, whether they're individual sports or group sports, because even in individual sports, you meet and connect with other people. I've met people all around the world through sports that I've done, which has just been marvelous. And being socially connected with people really, I think, is extremely important in terms of your mental well-being. Um, and doing sport or doing anything physically active, you know, creates endorphins in your system, and that creates a sense of well-being as well. So all of those things, I think, contribute to mental well-being.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as someone who's tried a lot of different recreational and physical activities, I'm looking forward to your answer to this next question. What are a couple accessible recreational or leisure opportunities people might not have tried that bring you joy?
Well, one of the things that's really important to me is connecting with nature. And when I was injured, I was studying fish and wildlife technology, which I gave up, and eventually studied occupational therapy at university and had a career in occupational therapy, working in mental health and addictions. But after I retired, I really found I was craving to be more involved in nature. And I'd been very curious about the ravines in Toronto and wanted to know more about them. So I ended up joining the Toronto Field Naturalists and doing a number of walks with them. They offer 140 walks and lectures per year, and it's an entirely volunteer run organization. And eventually I joined one of their committees, the walk committees, and the agenda for me was to develop the accessibility features that they have in their walks. So all of the walk descriptions now contain information that people can use to figure out if it's something they think they would be able to do. Um, it tells you about the grade of the slope. It tells you about the surface. It tells you about whether there are stairs or not, whether there are railings on the stairs, where washrooms are in those walks. Um, so that was very OT-ish of me to do that, but it's also just natural to my life in a wheelchair. So that's something unusual that many people might not think of, but I highly recommend the Toronto Field Naturalists if people are interested in that.
That's a really great suggestion. I had never thought about that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So, yeah, thank you
Then
for sharing your story with us, Joan. We really appreciate your time.